Devlin, Untamed. The platform.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Martin Devlin, Locked on War. iOS, it's only sport. That's the name of the 1 till 4 everyday afternoon show that we do on the platform, the only independent daily radio sports program in New Zealand. Today, basking in the glow of what has been a fabulous Black Caps performance in the first test against South Africa, Mount Maunganui. Forget whatever it is about their team. Who cares whether or not 56 of their best players stayed at home? So what? History is being created here. We've never beaten South Africa in a test series. You can only play who's in front of you. Every cliche available. Let's smack him, and bum shellac him. And that's exactly what's happening. A yuppie perspective on this from Craig Marais out of the Republic. Craig Cumming, former New Zealand opening batsman in both forms of the game, white ball and red ball. His perspective on Kane Williamson, 31 test centuries, and now he's just 5 away from matching Sir Richard Hadlee. Paddles 36 times. He took a fifer in test cricket. Well, Kane's got 31 centuries, which is the batting equivalent of. So when does the conversation start about whether or not this man is going to become our greatest ever cricketer? Yeah, it's not a serious conversation. It's a little bit meaningless, a little bit trivial, but that's what we do in sport, don't we? That's what we celebrate. That's what we absolutely love. Six Nations rugby kicked off over the weekend. The French-Ireland game marred by another red card. Justin Marshall is our man up in the Northern Hemisphere with that. And Barry John. Remember the name. They called him the King. He's a little bit before my time. 1971 Lions tour, the only time that team's ever come down here to New Zealand and won, and he was absolutely instrumental. Those that saw him play say that he is, and well, still is, the greatest ever first 5 to walk onto a rugby field. Brendan Telfer covered those games. He joins us on the podcast to reflect on the life and times and the great career of Barry John. As always, we begin the show, tablets in hand. I say gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. What did we learn from the weekend sport? Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
In no particular order, Kane Williamson is a batting god. Hey, we knew that already though, didn't we? But he's now entered the upper echelon of Test cricket centurions, only 15 on the list who've hit 30 tons or more. He's 13th on that list at the moment, ahead of Joe Root and Matthew Hayden. Our greatest ever with a bat, no question, and now starting to seriously challenge Sir Richard Hadlee as perhaps our greatest ever cricketer, period. Rachin, Ravindra is the future. What a brilliant story this young man is. So good seeing a person with such talent rising to the top and using and exploiting that ability that he has. A superb one-day World Cup late last year. On the back of that, he was given a huge IPL contract and now a double ton in a test match. What a future he has. More power to the kid. Rachin, Ravindra. Remember the name! And yes, we've also got to acknowledge that this South African side is weak. They are very poor. I think they're about the standard of a New Zealand A side. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm just stating facts. 56 of their best players, they left at home. To me, it's a bit like watching the Black Caps play, say, the best provincial side in New Zealand. Us versus Northern Districts or whoever. But so what? That's not our fault that they sent a G team here. Our job is to demolish them, smack them hard, and then humiliate them again. After we win this one, go to the next one and do it to them. Even worse than we've done it to them this time. Create history. Become the first New Zealand side ever to win a test match series against South Africa. And maybe next time, they'll actually send their strongest team. The Breakers are clinging to life. I say this every week. A really, really important win away Perth over the weekend. 4 games left. If they win them all, they are in the playoffs, no question. Winning 3 of those remaining games will probably see them there. The record is 11-13 right now. A 500 record would definitely get a 5th or 6th spot, but losing star import Anthony Lamb, not good news as well. As I said, they're hanging in there, those Breakers, which really has been the story of the whole season to date. The Phoenix is still riding high. battling. Top of the table draw yesterday versus the CCM in front of, get this, a season high 12,301 spectators at the Cake Tin. That's double the normal turnout. 2 draws in the last 2 games, 2 points clear and 10 to go. Finally, bloody red cards are still ruining rugby. Another much anticipated international match wrecked by a meathead player committing foul acts. Williamson, the French/South African lock, he was the culprit this time. Absolute dumbass. Ireland versus France should have been one of the best matches of the year. Ireland won it in a canter in the end, 38-17. But the questions will always linger. They always will. What might have been if it was 80 minutes of what we wanted to see, 15 on 15?
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Lachlan, headlines are what?
Well, we'll start off with the cricket. Black Caps, South Africa, what is it, day 4? Day 4 today. Mm-hmm. The Black Caps declaring at 179 for 4, so it's sent South Africa into bat. They need 529. I mean, they won't get there. They're on 62 for 2. It is lunch right now. In terms of the headline grabbers from the last day or so, Kane Williamson hitting another Test century. He finished in the second innings with 109. What did he get in the first one? 118 it was. Now, here are a few numbers just to quickly run past you. Among current players, only Australian Steve Smith has scored more Test centuries than Kane Williamson, but he hasn't quite scored them at the same rate. Williamson's 3100s in 170 innings is the best centuries to innings ratio of any batsman who has scored at least 20 Test centuries, aside from
Don Bradman.
Yes. So
Don Bradman. So I think that the other stat that got me, which is amazing, was that Sachin got 51 centuries in 200 tests. Williamson has played, 97, 98 tests, something like that, and he's got 31. So if you do the numbers, I'm not going to say
and
it,
of the, so
but he could.
Of his centuries, it's still like 15 of them. So he's got 31 now, right? Because he got another 30 in the first innings. 15 of them are like overseas as well.
I mean,
so like David Warner, you look at his centuries, for example, most of his are in Australia. He never really gets them overseas.
No, look, he
unless it's
deserves his
Bangladesh.
place in that list now of the greatest to ever wield a cricket bat, Kane Williamson. No question.
All right. New Zealand cricket greats Sir Richard Hadley, Debbie Hockley and the late Martin Crowe have all been inexplicably listed as Australians on the ICC Hall of Fame website.
What?
Yeah. Unreal. Major League Cricket has landed the most prominent signing of its short history with Ricky Ponting, Australian great,
police.
joining the Washington Freedom as coach.
Stop it, mate. He's not playing, is he?
No, he's the coach. He's the Washington Freedom coach.
God, stop it. God almighty, mate. Oh, there's as much credibility as, Brian Lara turning out for the Black Caps. Come on.
Australia's day-night match against the West Indies finished in daylight during the shortest completed one-day game played in the country. They were chasing 86 for victory, Australia. They did so in 6.5 overs in a one-day match. Now, this is news that we were talking about last week has been confirmed. Former All Black Tony Brown officially being announced as an assistant coach with the Springboks. We knew this was coming. The Wellington Phoenix played yesterday, didn't they? 0-0 draw.
Record crowd.
For
this season.
Well, how much?
12,301.
Good.
Yeah, good on you, Wellington. Good turnout.
A 0-0 draw, but they stay top of the table due to the Phoenix. It's now a 2-point gap ahead of the Central Coast Mariners, who they did play yesterday. So when you can kind of keep a bit of a buffer on the team that's right there, that's good work. And world champion boxer Alexander Usyk has revealed that he missed the birth of his daughter while training for the heavyweight title unification bout with fellow heavyweight Tyson Fury, which has now been postponed. That, of course, if you saw the news with Tyson Fury getting a cut in sparring. But yeah, missed the birth of his daughter because he was training for the fight. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
Six Nations rugby. France versus Ireland. The biggest game in the sport since the Rugby World Cup final. Two things in common. Not the teams, of course, because France and Ireland both knocked out in the quarterfinals by those two teams that played in the final, South Africa and the All Blacks. But 2 red cards marring what should have been 2 absolutely fantastic international rugby encounters. I don't know what the solution is, people. I really don't. I'm not sure whether the 20-minute rule Alice Super Rugby is going to work. But what I do know is that when you get a red card in a test match of this calibre, it wrecks it as a spectacle for the spectator. Justin Marshall with his thoughts from up north. France versus Ireland. It was marred by another red card. Williamson, just dumbass.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, again, the players know the guidelines. They know the law at the moment. And regardless of any mitigating circumstances, look at like it, you know, we know what they are, which is, you know, the player was falling into my shoulder, or, you know, whatever it might be that you feel you're going to get an excuse for. At the end of the day, when a TMO is sitting up in that box, has the review system and sees direct contact to the head, regardless of all of it, once it's direct contact to the head, you're going to see yellow. And then if you do it twice, you're going to see red. Unfortunately, Marty, in international rugby, unlike Super Rugby, you don't have then that cool-down period for 20 minutes where you've got to try and survive with 14 men, and then you can get back to 15 and we've got a contest again if you're good enough to stay in the game. In international rugby, if it happens in the first minute or the 79th, you're living with 14 men. And unfortunately for France, they had to deal with that. And look, at the end of the day, to be perfectly honest, I feel it ruins the contest. I feel we need to really look at it. Look, I know it's a deterrent, and when it's red, a deterrent means if you get it wrong and you're down to 14 men in international rugby because the tempo and the intensity is so high, that's the maximum penalty. So if you don't learn, this is what happens. But as a spectacle, when you're going along and you're a ticket holder and you pay big money, and you do pay big money for the Six Nations, and you see a game reduced to a one-man advantage, it does sting a bit because you feel that there's a little bit out of the contest that's missing. But in saying that, I must say, mate, Ireland, holy moly, they were impressive.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were. Look, they're an excellent team. We knew that, and also, you know, in the quarterfinal against the All Blacks, that was probably the worst game that they'd played out of the 18 and 19 tests, and just happened to be the one that they lost. But just quickly back on Williamson. Look, you know, it's inexcusable, I know, but I just can't help but feel that, I agree with you that as a spectator, I'm shortchanged. I groaned as soon as he went off and just said, okay, it's 14 versus 15. If you're an Irish fan, you're going to enjoy winning by 20 points. But, you know, I'm not. And so, therefore, I just want to see an even contest between two teams who I thought are the two best teams in the Six Nations, the two that were probably left the World Cup most disappointed. There was so much riding on this. And in the end, there's always an asterisk beside the scoreline, like the World Cup final to me. Justin, these are the two biggest games in the sport. This is World Rugby, your showpiece. This is your shop window. The World Cup final, you know, probably the final of the Six Nations in the opening round, and both of those games get wrecked by a red card. I'm not blaming the officials or the rules or anything like that. I just feel like, I don't know. Maybe the answer is, as you say, the Super Rugby thing, Williamson can't come back on, but your other lot comes back on, so you lose one off the bench. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, and you need to survive 20 minutes, you know, and 20 minutes is a long period of time. You know, if teams knew that law, Marty, and they'll discuss it because they analyse the game to the nth degree, and they knew that if a player gets a red card and they say to themselves, righto, in their tactics throughout the week, they go, righto, if they get a red card, we know we've got 20 minutes. This is what we're going to do. Because you know that the opposition are going to basically tread water for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And try and survive and not leak points until that player comes on. So there's a real tactical thing goes on for 20 minutes. The dynamic that it also plays a part in it, which does irritate me a bit, is it completely changes the way you've got to play. Because when you are down a man, you are literally having to adapt and adjust. You think, okay, we wanted to attack them from inside their own half, even inside our own 22, and we wanted to have a real lick at them. But now that we're down to 14, it's just going to fatigue us, and we're going to tire quicker. So all of a sudden, France become insular.
Yeah.
And again, we're not only robbed of the spectacle, but we're robbed of the way both teams can play. And that's the discussion we've got to have. Look, I get it. I get the fact that they're trying to teach the players to take this out of the game so we don't have the head injury problems and the ongoing issues from those. But at the end of the day, we've also got to think about our game and the spectacle of the game and a contest. And this, I don't feel that this game was so much robbed as others I've seen, because I just thought initially, right from kickoff, that Ireland were just a team that were better in sync right from the start. Let's not think about Williamson and what he did. You know, obviously brain explosion a couple of times, but boy, they look slick. No Johnny Sexton, and I thought the way they orchestrated that win there, they're dynamic. When they get into the right zones, they're quick. They've got tempo. They've got pace. They've got power. They've got some real grunt up front, and they looked very, very good, and good to see them bounce back from a massive disappointment at the Rugby World Cup. They are a force to be reckoned with. So, yeah, we've had the debate, Marty. Me and you sit in the same chair, mate.
Okay.
But again, I don't think it would have saved Ireland on the day, even if they still had 15.
France on the day.
France, I should say. So, yeah.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. What is more chance of happening, Lachlan? It's your favourite game.
Yes!
It's called...
What is more chance of
Say it
happening?
with more vim and vigour,
What
please.
is more chance of happening?
I present 2 scenarios to you. You decide out of the 2 what is more chance of happening.
Next!
South Africa win the second cricket test against us starting in Hamilton next Tuesday, or Paul Williamson gets voted the dumbest rugby player on the planet at the next World Rugby Awards, and why the hell don't they have that award at those awards?
Well, I'm battling with logic here and what actually will happen versus what should happen, because what should happen is Paul Williamson should be voted the dumbest rugby player on the planet.
What's your suggestion here for this? How does rugby...
20-minute red card. They've already trialled it. I'm pretty sure internationally, definitely in Super Rugby.
Just a caveat on that. What say it is foul play? So it's not... this was foul play, but what say it's, a really violent, thuggish
Like
act.
a bloke's got to swing an arm to a head of someone.
Somebody kicks somebody
doing
in a
a
ruck.
Jared Waerea-Hargreaves
all of
kind
that
of thing.
kind of stuff. Okay, does that alter it at all?
Yes.
So
That's when you leave it up to the referee to make the decision and make the call of what he feels to be malice.
Right, okay. So to me, if it's malice, you don't get to replace the player.
Yeah.
But this is... It's dumb, it's intentional, it's reckless, it's foul because it's a shoulder to the head, but it's not malicious, is it?
Yeah.
Good. See, this is the rugby's problem again. Now we're going to get into definitions of...
But I think that's simple to be able to do that. Because think about when we watch games and we'll see something happen, and say for, the French guy on the weekend, when you watch that you go, okay, that's dumb, it's reckless, it's silly, it's against the rules, but it's not malicious. You know it's not malicious. You can tell. It's the same.
It's just dumb and stupid.
Same with Sam Kane in the World Cup final.
Yeah.
Angus Tartveld on that test against Ireland, which we bring up quite a bit from 2022.
Sonny Bill's many red cards. Scott Barrett, I don't think is a malicious player.
No.
But he's got carded a few times as well for the All Blacks. So
Now then, if you see something like what Jared Waerea-Hargreaves did against...
just the elbow to the face.
when he went straight after that Tigers player last year and just charged him with a swinging arm. Now, that's malicious.
Well, that's wounding with intent is what
Yes.
it is, isn't it? That's actually a criminal offence.
Next!
What is more chance of happening? South Africa wins the second cricket test, or Arsenal go on to win the EPL after beating Liverpool on the weekend?
South Africa win the second test.
No.
Yep.
Arsenal at least have a chance.
They've got a chance, but are they going to beat Man City to the title? No.
No, Mordor, or the Death Star, is just lurking behind now, isn't it? Can you feel it? Can you feel it on your shoulder? Can you feel Darth Vader sitting there, all you Liverpool fans, going, guess what? In the end, I blow you up. I win. That's what happens. Man City have got the title, mate, haven't they? They will be top before you play next. I shouldn't be so gleeful, but of course that's because I am a mean-spirited person when it comes to
There has never
your
been a
football
moment
club.
this season where I've said, I think we are going to win the title, and I would say that we're favourites. The entire season I've said Man City.
Yeah, well...
Next!
Well, you see, this is the problem with this game today, is that South Africa win the second cricket. They're not going to win the second cricket test, Lachlan. Unless a miracle turns around. What is more chance happening? South Africa win the second cricket test, or South Africa draw the second cricket test? Neither of those things got more chance of happening, have they? They're not going to do it.
Well, they could draw.
No, they can't, mate. They're not good enough.
Just absorb balls.
They're not good enough.
But
they
you
are
never
a
know.
provincial cricket
If
side.
they push
is what
this
they
out
are.
to a fifth day...
Today?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll change my tune.
Next.
In that case, I'll change my tune. What is more chance happening? South Africa win the second cricket test, or Ireland go on to complete a grand slam in the Six Nations?
Oh, Ireland go on to complete a great... They've got the toughest game out of the way. Everyone else is a walk in the park for them, except for Scotland.
And they were good. Like, let's take nothing away from them. I'm really interested to hear what Justin has to say about this. Justin Marshall, in about 25 minutes or so about this. They were good, but it's just that 15 is always going to beat 14 in a game of rugby, apart from when England played Argentina at the World Cup last year in a pool match.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, or 90 times, out of 93, the 15 will beat the 14 because...
Especially if they are evenly matched.
Yeah, and
teams.
everything about the rugby game has to change. All of a sudden, you can't be expansive. All of a sudden, you've got to go into your mould of a set piece and just go from kick to penalty to scrum and so forth. You can't, you've got big gaps in your team if you're down to 14 as the All Blacks. I mean, we got bloody close in the final, but we were always chasing that game. Ireland have, I think England have got a chance against them and Scotland have got a chance against them. I think they'll walk the floor with Wales, but just because of the history between all of these countries, I think that there's added a little bit more to it.
Yes!
What is more chance happening? South Africa win the second cricket test starting next Tuesday in Hamilton, or France go on from here to win the Six Nations, even though they lost to Ireland?
France go on to win the Six Nations.
They go, really?
Yep.
Well,
That's got more chance than South Africa winning the second test, absolutely.
Well, you were saying before that you think they're going to battle day to day and then they're going to go to hell.
I said there's a chance. That was when asking if Arsenal could win the league. They're not winning the Premier League.
Well, according to Arsenal, they are. The way they celebrated and danced on the pitch after...
but Arteta doing a Mourinho running down the touchline.
See, I find that absolutely embarrassing. I find it embarrassing.
If Klopp did that,
There's
I'd be
23
embarrassed.
well, everyone would be. There's 23 matches being played. There's 15 to go. Dance down the sideline when you've got a 6-point lead and there's one
I don't
match
know.
to go.
Your last 2 goals, son, we gifted to you.
Exactly.
No, I mean, like you played well. You were better than us. But heck, the second and third goal, we gifted
They
it.
dominated the first half and it ended up being 1-1. And for the first 5 to 10 minutes after the second half...
That's why they can't win the title. And just quickly, there was really good footage. I think it might have been Michael Owen who was running through it. That one of their biggest issues is when they've got guys pushing forward, they've got guys on the wings making runs and actually getting around the defenders, there's no one in the middle. Everyone is like 20 metres back. So you've got to then wait for them to catch up.
To be fair, I thought that was the poorest I've seen Liverpool play all this season.
Yeah.
And... you only lost the game because of a couple of calamitous defensive...
We were level at half time. We shouldn't have been.
Next.
What is more chance of happening then? South Africa win the second cricket test against the Black Caps. I'm so glad about this. I'm gleeful about this. You send a third division side here, this is what you get. Oh, you big proud yappies. Oh, no, these guys, they wear the perky, everything on there, they're going to play... You're playing like pussies, mate. You're a provincial New Zealand side getting bum shellacked. And now, we've never lost you in a test series. Well, you're about to, pal. So what is more chance happening? South Africa win that second cricket test or Italy win a game in the Six Nations?
Well, they weren't far off beating England.
How poor is that England side?
Yeah, they're not good.
As an England rugby fan, we'll talk about this with Miles tomorrow. But every time they play, it doesn't matter whether they're playing the Mount Albert Grammar third 15. They'd be lucky to win by a point, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, they're just such the most gnarly, rubbish, losing-looking side.
They just don't play a good brand.
No.
They can't even play a boring brand well.
No.
So they're just
Yet
a
they were within
boring team.
one kick and 2 minutes away from making the final.
Yeah, I know.
And that particular game against South Africa, they played really well in that semi-final.
It was the only game during the tournament that they had to play really hard and well for 80 minutes. There was the Argentina game, but they just... Well, actually, no, to be fair, but Argentina were pretty poor in that game. Apart from that, they didn't have to play really a tough opponent up until the semi-finals. Whereas you look at someone like Ireland, who had...
South Africa should have lost that day. Don't for a second. If out of all the games that South Africa played at the Rugby World Cup, they did lose one to Ireland. They should have lost that semi-final. And they didn't play well at all.
No.
They got
didn't.
away.
Well, no, they shouldn't have. They shouldn't have lost.
What is more chance of happening?
Because they won.
South Africa wins the second test. We've got a couple more to go before we go to the news, sport and weather. And that starts next Tuesday. Or Rachin Ravindra keeps his place for the Australian series at the end of the month. I do feel for Henry Nicholls now. I do feel for him.
No, you were bagging Henry Nicholls
I
last
wasn't
year.
bagging Henry Nicholls. I just said that how's he keeping his place in the team? That's not bagging
You
a
were
player.
calling for him to be dropped.
Yeah, well, that's because he wasn't playing well.
So you were bagging him
That's
then.
not bagging him. That's just saying you're not playing well, mate.
I think that comes under bagging
I
him.
don't think so. I think that's called being honest.
Jeez. I would say there's more chance that Rachin Ravindra keeps his place.
Rachin is in the team until he doesn't want to be in the team.
Next.
What is more chance of happening?
That's kind of, yeah.
South Africa
I'll
win the
say that.
second cricket test, or Man United make the top 4 of the Premier League? See, I just want him to say this out loud, people. I just want him to say it out loud.
There's more chance South Africa win the second
No, there are
test.
just stop it, mate. There's zero chance that is happening.
All right, let me go to the table in the Premier League for starters. 4th are Aston Villa. They're on 46 points. Spurs are on 44. Oh, you guys aren't far. You're 8 points off.
And we play Villa next.
What suggests you're unbeaten in 3? Ooh.
Well, 2 league games, isn't it, I think?
No, 3 you're unbeaten. You've won 2 in a row.
Oh, okay.
What suggests that you guys are going to go on a run to get into the top 4?
Nothing.
Next.
Nothing at all. That was the first time United had won back-to-back games since November in the league.
I mean, similarly to Newcastle and actually Chelsea to an extent, you've won 12, like you've lost 9. You haven't drawn too many.
No.
So when you win, you win. But when you don't win, it's not like you're drawing and still getting a point. You're losing.
No, we're losing. So what happens is the whole season's been about win this game, lose the next game, win this game, lose the next game, which is why winning back-to-back is so remarkable.
Next.
Final then. And Big Bob's already texted in to say, afternoon soys, 24 days till the NRL starts. I'm going to call it early, the Warriors to miss the top 8. So final one is, what is more chance happening? South Africa win the second cricket test against us. They're getting bum shellacked, ladies and gentlemen. Pantsed, humiliated and embarrassed at the Mount at the moment. Or the Warriors make top 4. And I want you to say it again as well.
More chance.
Well, it's bloody obvious. Don't even think about it. There's no chance that the Yarps win that test.
It's not that I don't think the Warriors are good enough. I do. The NRL's just, you look at the table every year, it changes so much. There's like 3 or 4 new teams in the finals every single year. The top 4's never the same. So logically, you've got to pick 1 or 2 teams.
Okay, we'll do one more then, because this will actually make it easier for you. What is more chance of happening? South Africa do a number on us in that second test, or the Warriors finish above the Broncos?
Oh, there's more chances.
Oh,
South
no,
Africa win the
see,
test.
that's rubbish, mate. You don't even
Mate,
believe that.
come
You don't
on. Yes,
believe
I
that they're
do.
going to do that.
There is much more. Are you kidding me? There's 2 teams in the NRL right now
There's
that
no
proved
way.
last
Look
year.
at South Africa, mate. They might as well pick you and me to
What
bat for them.
suggests that the Warriors are going to finish higher than the Broncos?
Black Caps just wasting South Africa in this first test. Couple of tons to Captain Kane, Rachin, Ravindra. Brilliant performance from the young man, and just so cool, isn't it, to see somebody with so much talent, so much promise, getting his chance and just seizing the day like he has. A couple of different angles for you on the podcast. Craig Marais out of South Africa to start with, and then Craig Cumming following that. So the first, Craig, talking about this Yarpy team and what does it all mean? The second, Craig, on Kane Williamson, the New Zealand captain, and now 13th on the all-time Test century getters in cricket. Just an extraordinary performance and still going. 2 Craigs on the podcast. Craig, well, what do you make of it, mate? I mean, here in New Zealand, we're loving every second of this because we think that for the first time ever, we might actually beat you in a series. Do we need to put an asterisk beside this or not?
Enjoy it, Martin. I think, I mean, it's really, they say it's a South African C team. It could be a D team, but you got to give credit to New Zealand as well. I think, they've been pretty clinical. You've got to do all the hard yards, and Kane Williamson, and you guys are you're doing what you have to do, and I'm sure it's going to be good practice for coming series. But I hope the public's not feeling too shortchanged.
No, I don't think so. I think that we've been delighting in the fact that Rachin Ravindra, who we all saw during the One Day World Cup, just explode onto the world scene. Look, we wanted him in the test team against Bangladesh. That didn't happen. Now he's got a double 100. So let's start with him. I mean, you've got to celebrate a young man with so much talent, so much of a bright future in front of him, and then performing at the highest level on the world stage.
Completely. I saw him, the first I saw him was at the Under-19 World Cup. And then obviously at this, the last World Cup, he was a future, you could see this guy's a future star. And what a find for New Zealand. What a wonderful player. He can bowl his little bit of his left arm spin as well. But what a find for New Zealand. And hopefully he'll delight cricket lovers all over the world for years to come. A special talent. And Kane Williamson, we know all about him, but what a player, 31 Test hundreds. Probably New Zealand's greatest batsman. Martin Crowe would be up there, but I suppose statistically, Kane Williamson is right up there. He's breaking all the records, and special player. We love watching Kane Williamson, just the way he plays. It doesn't matter if this was an Indian team or Australian team or South African C team. He's just got such a brilliant technique. He plays so late, and averaging 55 of nearly 100 Test matches. He is going to go down as one of the greats.
Yeah, what a list to join those that have got over 30 Test centuries. He's going to go on from here, obviously, as well. He's so diligent about what he does. He's just the absolutely most perfect person to be in that position in the New Zealand cricket team. Better than Martin Crowe with the bat. I think we've all accepted that. The debate's now starting, Craig, to turn towards when can we start adding him to the conversation about the greatest cricketer New Zealand's ever produced, Sir Richard Hadlee. Now, I suppose, one's a bowler, one's a batter. You're trying to kind of get, valid measuring sticks. Paddle's got 36 5-wicket hauls. So let's carve that out as the bowler's equivalent of a century. Kane's got 31 centuries. He's very close now. When those two figures even up, and we expect them to, that's when that conversation might start.
Yeah, I mean, what a great cricketer Sir Richard Hadlee was. And the thing with Kane Williamson, that at such different times and obviously different decades, Kane Williamson, I mean, in all formats, I mean, we're talking Test cricket, 50 over, T20. He's a brilliant performer in all different formats, and been a great captain as well. Well, what a great debate to have for you guys there, Martin.
So what's the reaction in South Africa to this? Is there any interest in this series at all amongst cricket fans, or are all your eyes still on the T20 comp?
I think there's still a lot of eyes on this T20, and the ironical thing, Martin, is that, this T20, SA T20 as they call it, there have been so many young players that have come through. Very much like, I suppose, with the IPL in India getting all this depth. So as embarrassing as it is with the Proteas against New Zealand at the moment, it's brought a lot of young talent coming through in this SA20 that will probably stake their claim going forward. So this South African C team might be a D team soon. A lot of feeling in South Africa is that, it's a bit embarrassing that we can't send our best Test team, but a lot of it's double standards. The England, Australia, India sort of kept everything amongst themselves. I mean, India don't have a problem with their IPL with any scheduling issues. So in many ways, South Africa has been forced to do what they have done. But at the same time, we're still hoping that, one or two of these South Africans will still put their hand up and maybe bat for a whole day or put up some bit of fight. That there's always opportunities for someone to put their hands up. But it's been pretty dismal, their performances so far. I think they'll keep on trying. They've just been outplayed by a very good New Zealand team.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
Devlin.
Yes, can they do it?
The platform.
Kane Williamson then, and we were chatting about this yesterday, and I'm going to leave you to discuss your theory because it is your theory. But just before we get on to that, 31 Test centuries. It feels like every time he bats now, I was so relaxed every time Marty Crowe batted, mate. I always thought that we could win a game and that he'd get 100 every time he batted. I feel like that about Kane Williamson. Obviously, the big test is coming with Aussie, isn't it? But, I have no worries about him being able to step up another level to play. But just the way he goes about his business, 31 Test centuries, he's 13 on the all-time list now, Craig. He's got to be talked about with all of those other names. It's fabulous.
Oh, it's we've got a Test cricketer with 31 hundreds, Marty. Wow. I remember when Kane equalled Martin Crowe's 17.
I do too,
I actually started my commentary, when I started commentating, I remember being at Eden Park, and I was actually with Mark Richardson, and Kane was averaging 31. I think he might have had 3 Test hundreds back then, and it was like, right, it's time for this guy to now step up. He had 2 or 3 years of being in the side. He got 100 on debut. We now need to see him go to another gear. And wow, he he's gone bush. I mean, 31 Test hundreds, Marty. I mean, you think about Martin Crowe, that's who I grew up watching, and then I'd run outside and grab my bat and practice playing shots like Martin Crowe. And Kane's got, 14 more hundreds than him. Yes, I know he's played a few more Tests, but not that many. And then you just go and mirror it to the greats of the game. And Sachin Tendulkar played 200 Test matches and got 5,100. So he's got 20 more than Kane, but he's played 105 more Test matches. You compare him to Ponting. His record is equal, if not better, than Ricky Ponting. Sandy Gavaskar, those people. We are talking about the genuine greats of the game when it comes to batting. Kane is better when it comes to statistically than those guys. He's getting 100 every 3.1 Test matches. Absolutely phenomenal. And, again, him and Ross Taylor were going neck and neck for a while there with hundreds, and they equalled Martin Crowe's. Now he's got 31, Marty. I mean, we talk about the genuine greats. I mean, he's got a better record. He's about to approach Brian Lara. Things like that. It's unbelievable. And he's got so much more still to give. So, I mean, where's he going to end up? Is he going to end up in the 40s? He could easily end up with 40 Test hundreds, Marty, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And now that he gets ever so closer to the other magic number for New Zealand cricket, which is 36, and I think your theory's brilliant, mate, because a fast bowler, and the Aussies started doing this, when they get a 5 for, they raise the ball to the crowd like, you raise your bat when you get a ton. So a 5 for is the equivalent of a Test century. Sir Richard got 36 of those. Kane's on 31. When he gets to 36, and we both believe that he will, does that conversation now have to begin about who is our greatest ever? And it's a silly conversation, Craig, because, God, let's celebrate both of them. And they're both geniuses, aren't they?
Yeah.
And all of that. Yeah. But, whoever would have thought we would be opening the door to talk about that?
Oh, exactly. And, I mean, I don't like it either because, I mean, how do you ever, gauge Sir Richard Hadlee? Even Sir Richard Hadlee now, in the context of world bowlers. I mean, he's down the list, but you look at his strike rate, and he was the first to 400. He broke the barrier, when it came to the most Test wickets. So he is always at the very top. But my thought is we talk about Kane and Martin Crowe. Well, I think Kane has surpassed Martin Crowe when it comes to, from a batting point of view, because his record just suggests it. No one's saying that Martin Crowe's record wasn't phenomenal and he wasn't an amazing player to watch. I mean, that's who I wanted to be growing up, and sort of fell a little bit short, but, Kane is there. But, I mean, it does come in the conversation. I mean, I always remember when growing up, when Richard was bowling, and they compared him to Sonny Gavaskar, and I thought they actually mirrored each other, that hundreds equals 5, but I think Richard got one more 5 wickets than Sonny Gavaskar, who was the greatest batter of all time through that generation. He got 3,500. So it's a nice wee yardstick, and I think the great thing is, Sir Richard's been head and shoulders above everyone else. But I think by the end of Kane's career, you could probably, they'll be able to sit at the head of the table together. I think they're both, they're both going to be our genuine greats with the batting and bowling. But if we were to name number one, I think they probably, by the end of his career, that they'll be sitting together. And if Kane end up with 37, 38 Test hundreds, I don't think Sir Richard would have a problem with that either. Those two guys sitting at the head of the table, one is a batter, one is a bowler, and saying these are our two genuine greats of the game.
The Tight 5.
5 separate sporting topics, roughly 60 seconds, a minute or so on each of those topics. And when the bell goes, it means we move on to the next one. Cricket, Kane, Ravindra, and very lame South African side. Bronze record, Lachlan. 20 years in the saddle for that guy. Undeniable what he's achieved on a basketball court. Lewis Hamilton goes to Ferrari next season. Now, you know a lot more about the F1 than I do. We'll talk about this with our man Vincenzo tomorrow. Is that significant, or is he a bit old, Lewis, these days? 6 Nations, the red cards. I don't know what the solution is, but what did you learn before we go to Justin about the 6 Nations over the weekend? A quick break is Nick's update and Premier League. I think we've talked about that, but the 3-horse race is on. Although the Death Star, as we know, is looming. Cricket, Kane, Ravindra. Now, we began the show talking to Rahul about these two men. I really am just thoroughly in awe of Kane Williamson. Just what that guy has achieved playing cricket in New Zealand. Marty Crowe was world-class. Sir Richard, world-class. And we've had the odd one who has been, right up there with the very best that have ever played the game. And then there's this guy, Lachlan. He's scoring at a rate no other Test batsman has apart from...
Don Bradman.
So say that out loud a few times. You know, the thing I love about American sport, as much as I love American sport, is the stats as well. And when they come out with a basketball stat, and they do this on ESPN all the time, and they say that, oh, this guy's done this, and there's only Wilt and, you know, Michael Jordan or Dr. J or whoever it is that have achieved this. And you're going, look, any list that I can be on that's only got those guys' names on, I want you to frame that. I'm going to put it on the wall. Any list in cricket where the only other guy on that list is Don Bradman, what does that tell you about Kane Williamson?
He's pretty damn good.
Yeah. One of the greatest ever. And I hope, you know, internationally he's recognised as such too, because I know that we love him to bits down here.
It always felt like that when it came to the Fab Four, that he was the one looked down on the most.
I think so, yeah. And I think that's an attitude of the Australians is what that is, because they rate themselves and they rate their guys top of the pile. But he's scoring.
Well, actually, all three other countries do. Australia, England and India.
Everyone looks at Australia. Well, I suppose because they set the standard. But as you said earlier, this guy scored half of his Test centuries outside of New Zealand, which is incredibly impressive. But it's just when he picks up a bat, all I want from him now is to go on and to do it against Australia. Guide us to a Test win against Australia, Kane, and you've achieved everything that you could possibly achieve in the game.
And also, one thing about it that's actually quite incredible is that if you look at the numbers, and even just watching it, over the last 3 years, it feels like he's hitting more and he's getting older.
Yeah.
And he's had a couple of injuries.
A couple of bad injuries,
and
mate.
yet he's actually seemingly, I don't know the exact numbers.
Let's
but
not
his
forget.
average must be better over the last 2 or 3 years.
It was only 7 or 8 months ago. He had a really bad knee injury and maybe wasn't going to play the One Day World Cup.
Yeah, and then was meant to be out for 8-9 months and came back after about 4.
That's it. Then he got a hamstring injury just weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he's able to... I just... words fail me with this guy. Kane, I love you. Lewis Hamilton's going to Ferrari next season. 7-time F1 champion. The only other person who has won that many titles
Michael Schumacher.
Is he alive or dead?
Well, I'm not wearing my tinfoil hat, so I'll say he's alive.
Man, he's been dead ever since the accident.
Well, you don't know that.
Well, I think we all do, mate. I mean, you know, I think they're waiting.
There's not even been a photo.
They're waiting for some cryogenic technology or something. I feel it's really sad. Is what it is.
Well, he just vanished.
Well, no, he died, Lachlan.
No,
they're keeping him in a bloody ice bath, thinking that he's going to be resurrected at some
stage. But you'd think that if he was alive, someone would have put a photo of him up.
If there was any indication, if there was a waggle of a fingernail or something. But there's been nothing.
His wife would have like a nice photo of them two at a dinner at their private
I think it's really
house.
sad because I think he's been kept alive is what he's been doing, like tube fed to be kept alive.
Oh, so you actually think he is alive?
Well, I think there's oxygen being pumped into him, but I think he's been brain dead ever since the... But anyway, Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari.
Yeah.
Can he win another title?
Absolutely.
If he does, he's the greatest ever, right? He must be.
Well, no. I don't think there's a greatest.
See, the greatest ever for me is Fangio.
See, that's the thing. Some people say Fangio. Some people say...
Well, no, the reason I say Fangio is because Fangio drove,
He's the oldest world champion ever, by the way.
Back in the day, we used to build these things as kids called trolleys, right? Everyone built a trolley, right? Yeah. He won 5 titles in a trolley with a supersonic engine attached to it, right? It was like a cigar bomb. That's what he used to drive around the track.
Yeah, 5 in a row.
Yeah.
And he won
with
6 in 8 years.
Leather helmet on, for God's sake.
Yeah, I know.
But is Lewis going to win it for Ferrari?
Well, he's got a better... Assuming Mercedes don't make any massive leap forwards this year, which... When the when Formula One alters its regulations and we get into these new sort of eras of the sport, there's always one team that dominates that sort of period. And other teams try to catch up, but they never really do. And the team that's been setting the pace has been Red Bull, closely followed by... Well, not closely, but followed by Ferrari, and then Aston Martin been quite good. Mercedes are way down the order. So, look, it's probably going to stay that way. Thus, he's in a faster car, a team, though, that became humorous with their stupid strategizing in 2022 in particular, and totally muffed the fact that they had a really good car. Last year were a bit worse. So he's got to have a better car to work with. But that's all assuming that Red Bull are worse. And what suggests that they're going to be worse. But he's not too old, because he's 39. The oldest world champion was 46. Like Nigel Mansell was 39 when he won one. Damon Hill was 36.
All right, Six Nations then. We've talked about this. What is the answer? Is the answer to do the Super Rugby thing in a 20-minute red card? I'll ask Justin about this in a second as well. And so at least the spectators get what they paid for, which is a 15-on-15 game.
But why has it not been used more? They've trialled it. It seemingly works.
I've got the answer. It's the most obvious answer. It's called World Rugby. You don't need any other answer. Why on earth would World Rugby not do that? It's their product, their shop window.
Do you think they just like conflict? They just want there to be issues?
I just think they're goons and morons,
They
mate.
want people to keep complaining and arguing about referees because they're talking about rugby?
It is the same as when a whole lot of people sat around a room with Mark Robinson and said, no, look, honestly, the best idea is not to take that test to Fiji. The best idea is to play it in San Diego where there's no rugby presence at all and no one cares. And everyone's down the table, yeah, great idea, boss. Brilliant, boss. Superb, boss. No one's rocking the boat. No one's prepared to actually put their hand up. And
what do we tell people so they stop asking questions? Scheduling conflicts.
Yeah, scheduling.
Great.
Didn't have enough time to sort it out. Yeah.
Right. Good stuff, Mark. Lunchtime.
Breakers, Knicks, quick updates on those. Breakers going to make it? See, that win in Perth is a bloody big win, apart from losing Anthony Lamb.
Well, I want to say yes, but they haven't been consistent at all.
They've been Man United. They win a game, they lose a game. They win a game.
They've been better than Man United. Far out. You guys have been awful.
Well, our win-loss ratio is a little better than theirs at the moment, Lachlan. Thank you very much.
You've won 12 out of 25 games.
There you go.
They've won 11 out of 24.
There you go.
So it's about the same.
There you go. All right. As far as the Knicks go, great crowd in Wellington. Well done, Wellington, yesterday. 12,000.
I don't think they finished top, though.
I'm starting to worry myself. I don't know whether
they've dropped a lot of points recently. Then again, everyone is.
Yeah.
Melbourne Victory have played 15 games. They've won 6, drawn 9. They haven't lost a game.
Finally, we're going to celebrate this in 45 minutes.
No, I don't want to talk about it.
Bron's record today, last year. He broke Kareem's record. What was the result of the game?
We lost.
You lost.
Yeah.
You lost. But no one remembers that. They just remember Bron put up another 70 points and 30 rebounds.
When he hit the bucket and passed Kareem.
That bloody leaguers, isn't it?
Anthony Davis didn't get up and celebrate, and people asked him post-game, why didn't you celebrate LeBron's achievement? He said, because we lost the game. We were losing at the time we ended up
That's
losing.
right. I like that. I thought Street Closers the first time I actually applauded it. Barry John. Remember the name. The King, they called him. Yeah, a little bit before my time, but I do know who he was because I was awake and alive in Compass for the 1977 Lions tour. Well, he toured in 1971, and along with Gareth Edwards, formed a combination at the base of the scrum, which those that saw those two play still consider them to be the best ever 9 and 10 that have walked onto a rugby field. Barry John, the King. Brendan Telfer reflects. Let's talk about Barry John. 79, died across the weekend. Now, I've just done a little bit of, flicking around on this. He only played 25 matches for Wales and 5 for the Lions. And yet this guy's legend of being the greatest to wear that number 10 jersey has existed ever since. I made the mistake. I thought he'd also played the 74 Lions tour to South Africa. But no, he actually retired really early on. I think he was only in his 20s when he retired. But people call him the King.
27, I think.
Why is that?
Well, he was. He probably was, as a couple of British rugby writers have said, not just one of the greatest number 10s, so they call them fly halves, we call them first 5, but the greatest of all time. And I'd go along with it. I do remember that tour of 1971 when he came in. He, not just him, and Carwyn James as well, as really inspirational coach that they had, who was a Welshman as well. They completely changed the whole manner of rugby in this country because of the rugby they played. And I remember one match in particular, Wellington, because I lived in Wellington at the time. They beat Wellington, who was, we didn't have a national championship or anything like that in those days, but they were one of the 2 top teams in the country. And before the first test against the Lions in Dunedin, they thrashed this Wellington side by 47 points to 9, the biggest defeat any Wellington team ever suffered at the hands of a visiting side. And the backline they had that day, which basically was their test backline, it might have even been a week before the first test, I can't remember now, but they had 5 Welshmen in that backline, Gareth Edwards at halfback, Barry John at first 5, and then they had Mike Gibson and David Duckham in the centres, and then Gerald Davies on one wing, John Bevan on the other, who got 4 tries that day, and JPR Williams at fullback. And all of those guys, most of those guys in that backline became legends because they played around Barry John. He was, to put it quite simply, he was Dan Carter plus of the 1970s.
Yeah, okay, but why? Why was he that good?
Well, it was his footwork. It was his sense of where the ball was, where space was. He had an amazing ability to find space, very little space, and he would work his way through it. He could run, he could slide, he could glide, he was just a brilliant player, and he had these other players around him who fed off him, and that's why they became the only Lions side ever to have won the All Blacks in the Test series. And the coach, is going back to the Wellington game because it was so kind of significant. The coach of the Wellington team that day was a guy you probably remember if you go back into your memory far enough, a guy called Bill Freeman, who was a legendary rugby coach in Wellington. And he said after the game that my philosophy on playing rugby has completely changed because of what I saw today.
Wow.
And he said... And what he was getting at was Carwyn James's theory, which he put into practice on the rugby fields of New Zealand, is that you attack with the ball from anywhere on the field. This idea of playing 10-man rugby until you get into the opposition half, and then you might move the ball a bit, went out the window with the Lions in 71. It didn't matter whether they were on their own goal line, their own 22 or 25, as it probably was then. Wherever they had the ball, they attacked from. And it startled the opposition. They weren't ready for it. They didn't know how to counter it. And they won the series, although the All Blacks, won one match and drew one in that series. But against Wellington that day, it transformed rugby. I remember my father used to talk about the Wellington game against the Lions, and this Wellington side was just blowing off the field.
That's in the days also, of course, where A, there were tours, and B, that we put our strongest teams up. Like the Wellington provincial side was the strongest version of. Like these days, when the Lions play, they play a Super Rugby side minus all its All Blacks and things. Back in those days, you had when the Lions test team wasn't playing people, their players still played. These tours went for 20 or 30 matches, didn't they? And they actually fronted up and played. Brendan, what was the atmosphere like back in New Zealand then? Because we'd gone to Africa in 1970 thinking we're going to win under Vodanovic, I think was the coach, and B.G. Williams played that tour, remember, his first, and we lost that one 3-1, and then the Lions came out the next year, beat us in a series. Geez, it must have been a pretty grim and glum sporting environment.
It was, and this is why what the Lions did a huge favour to New Zealand rugby, because they showed us the way rugby should be played. And teams, Wellington was the first with Bill Freeman to transform the way they played the game. And I think you can look now over the years, we look back over the last 20 or 30 years, and all the great All Black sides, regardless of who the coach was, were at their best when they played attacking rugby.
Yeah, good point.
And you can trace a lot of that back to this lonely and clever figure called Carwyn James, who was found dead in a bath in a hotel in Amsterdam when he was about 51 or 52 years of age.
Hello. Yeah,
well,
right.
It turns out, there were all these speculations about this guy, and he had a lot of, I think, mental health problems in the latter part of his life.
Oh, poor thing.
And
mate, I tell you what, if you're dying in a bath in Amsterdam, Brendan, that's rock and roll, isn't it? Come on.
But in fact, post-mortem showed that he died of a heart attack, and he was, unfortunately, he was in Amsterdam on his own, and no one kind of knew that the guy was missing. It was 2 or 3 days before they even checked his room.
What a sad story.
Yeah, it was. But he was one of the greatest and most astute men that ever coached a rugby team. And that Welsh side, that backline in 1971, 5 Welshmen in that backline.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do though is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.